When we think of North Korea, we think of a population encompassed by a singular political philosophy, Juche. The political party behind this doctrine, the Workers' Party of Korea, is omnipresent. Flying below every national flag of North Korea in public is the flag of the Workers' Party of Korea. In such a realm where adherence to the guiding ideology is as mandatory as breathing, other political parties that propose a differing perspective should be illegal. However, concerning North Korea, this is not the case. North Korea doesn't just have one political party, it has three. In today's video, we will be dissecting North Korea's two minor parties. We will examine their history as well as their role in North Korean diplomacies. All of North Korea's political parties originate back to the 1940s, when the Soviet Union held jurisdiction over Northern Korea. The USSR tacitly validated political pluralism under the wildly mistaken hypothesis that communists would handily win a free and fair election. When this proved to be demonstrably incorrect, especially in Korea, as most of the communist sympathizers were in the South, the Soviet Union took immediate command over the political situation by liquidating party leaders and supplanting them with personages who would be loyal to Kim Il-sung and the then-called Workers' Party of North Korea. The after effect of these political expurgations would give rise to the three parties North Korea maintains today. The first such function we will be discussing is the Korean Social Democratic Party, or the Choson Sahui Minjudang. The KSDP was established on November 3, 1945 as the Korean Democratic Party by Mr. Cho Man-sik. The man discussed in our previous video on the Song of General Kim Il-sung was the original pick by the Soviets to govern North Korea. However, the Soviets quickly discontinued this plan as Cho Man-sik was fervently anti-communist and wasn't keen on being a figurehead for the USSR. KSDP in its heyday comprised of largely middle-class individuals, entrepreneurs, business owners, Christians, and farmers. The sort of characters who were longing to rid Korea of the vestiges of Japanese imperialism, but were not too keen on the ideas of communism, as they appropriately despaired that they would be the most assuring to suffer under its applications. Alternatively, they advocated for a Western-style market-based system with a parliamentary democracy. According to the website korea-dpr.com, the official website of North Korea run by the Korean Friendship Association, quote, "The KSDP's guiding idea is national social democracy befitting Korea's historical conditions and national characteristics, and its basic political motto is independence, sovereignty, democracy, peace, and the defense of human rights," unquote. As discussed before, this partisan course was not in step with what the Soviets had in mind for the would-be DPRK. So in 1946, they arrested Cho Man-sik and supplanted him with Jong-Un, a communist sympathizer and loyal lackey of Kim Il-sung. Upon appropriating the party's leadership, the KSDP would accompany the Workers' Party of Korea and the Chonryun Party under the banner of the Democratic Front for the Reunification of the Fatherland. Masquerading as a popular front, the DFRF was a trifle more than a tool that would ensure that opposing political parties would fall in line behind the Workers' Party. Our second and last minor party in North Korean politics is the Chondoist Chongdu Party. Founded on February 8, 1946 by Kim Tae-hyun, the Chondoist Chongdu Party, or the Chondogyo Chongudang, represented followers of Chondoism, which, without going into too much detail as Chondoism will be the topic of its own video, it is a pantheistic Korean nationalist religion that can be traced back to the Donghak Peasant Rebellion in 1894, the incident which led to the First Sino-Japanese War. Although now acknowledged as a declining religion, especially in the South, Chondoism was the second most prevalent religious belief in Northern Korea by 1945, with an estimated 1.5 million adherents. The Chondoist Chongdu Party, known formally as the Party of Young Friends, was staunchly opposed to Soviet-backed Korea due to the inherent anti-religious tenets of Marxism, and actively protested the Soviets' plan for Northern Korea through political discourse and public protest. The party proved popular, and at one point even had more members than the Communist Party of Korea. According to the same website, the Chondoist Chongdu Party, which I'll refer to as the CCP from now on for brevity's sake, was formed with the objectives to oppose imperialist aggression and subjugation, join in the work to secure national independence and build a rich, strong, democratic country with the patriotic idea of defending the country and providing welfare for the people, and the independent spirit of driving out Westerners and the Japanese. The party's founder, Kim Tae-hyun, was an opportunist before anything else, however. After recognizing that the Soviets were going to get their way one way or another, Tae-hyun sought to betray his party and followers in anticipation of gaining power. He did this by reporting to the Soviets plans he had made for a mass demonstration in Pyongyang on March 1st, 1948, the 28th anniversary of the March 1st resistance movement against Japanese occupation. The Soviets, in a display of their omniscient tolerance of dissenting political thought, promptly rounded up and arrested numerous Chondoist Party members and leaders, seemingly neutering the party as a threat to the incoming administration, and incorporating it into the same submissive democratic front for the reunification of the fatherland. Astonishingly, the Chondoist Party was not defeated just yet, and unlike the Korean Social Democratic Party, the Chondoist Party would not go quietly into the howling dark. Although outwardly, the Chondoist Party seemed content with moderate opposition through debate and dialogue, when the Korean War began, the Chondoist Party took the occasion instead to fight the KPA and Workers' Party of Korea in what amounted to a violent insurrection aimed at toppling the North Korean regime from the inside. Throughout the Korean War, Chondo activists would assassinate Workers' Party members and their families. While the ultimate scale of this rebellion is unclear as sources are scarce, in all likelihood this was an attempt to destabilize and eventually topple the incumbent government in an endeavor to grab power. This valiant attempt was doomed once the Chinese intervened on North Korea's behalf. With the armistice endorsed in 1953, the Chondoist Party was again subjected to purging until there was no prospect of additional rebellion or opposition. The KSDP and CCP were purged of local organizations and reduced to an extension of the Workers' Party. The party's founder, Kim Tae-hyun, was later arrested in 1958. His ultimate fate remains unknown, although it is likely that he was executed. Today, the KSDP and CCP still exist within the legislative body in North Korea. The KSDP currently holds 50 seats out of 687, while the CCP holds 20 seats. According to an article for nknews.org titled Being a Minor Party in the North, author Fyodor Tertitsky writes, "Both parties nowadays share exactly the same structure. They have the same number of permanent members, 1, and that person leads the party. The head of the former Democratic and now Social Democratic Party is Kim Yong-dae, and the chairwoman of the Party of Young Friends of Chung Do-gyo is Ryu Mi-yeon." The article continues, saying that although Kim Yong-dae is your run-of-the-mill North Korean bureaucrat, Ryu Mi-yeon of the Chondoist Party is a South Korean defector who allegedly defected of her own free will with her husband in 1986. Given that her husband was a senior official in the South Korean dictatorship at the time, this was a high-profile defection. Furthermore, there are reservations about whether they willingly defected, as Ryu Mi-yeon has never publicly stated her reasons for defection. There are some who believe that she may have been a victim of abduction along with her husband. According to that same article, Ryu Mi-yeon and her husband Cho Tok-shin were welcome in North Korea. Since they were both practicing Chondoists, they were brought into the party where Tok-shin would serve as the party leader until his death in 1989. His wife, Mi-yeon, has since assumed his position. From what little information we have, we know that these parties serve primarily few functions. One such purpose is to meet with foreign dignitaries and organizations like the Korean Friendship Association, attempting to showcase North Korea as a multi-party state with free and fair elections. KSDP and CCP members are also part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, an organ of the Workers' Party of Korea whose objective is to demonstrate the nation's solidarity with left-wing organizations in South Korea and abroad. This effort is exclusively tasked to the KSDP, as Chondoism has fallen to obscurity while social democracy has not. Examples of this include the KSDP leader, Kim Yong-dae, meeting with representatives of the far-left South Korean Unified Progressive Party. Together, the two parties made a joint declaration denouncing Japanese claims of sovereignty over the Dokdo Islands. They are a small group of islands that is claimed by the DPRK, ROK, and Japan. The KSDP has expressed its support of the Unified Progressive Party on multiple occasions, calling for solidarity among the South Korean far left, which has endured enormous political ostracization for what should be well-understood reasons. Outside of this function, these parties don't contribute much else to the political dialogue within the DPRK. While in some of the other communist countries, minor parties received a modicum of independence, places such as East Germany, where Christian Democrats famously abstained from ratifying abortion, is a fine example. This, however, is not the case in the DPRK. The power of these political factions has been disenfranchised from 1957 forward. Today, the KSDP and CCP exist purely as a front organization in the rubber-stamped Supreme People's Assembly. Their job is to read speeches written by the WPK or to ratify any proposals for the Supreme People's Assembly that have already been outlined at the WPK Congress. Insofar as the illusion of plurality is maintained, the KSDP might occasionally be permitted to levy critiques at the mid-level cadres that the supreme leadership around Kim Jong-Un decides to scapegoat further policy failures. This process would consist of speaking to state-controlled media or in the SPA listing critiques of a pre-approved list of those considered politically expendable. An example of these rare criticisms directed at party policy could be seen in the 1980s, when the KSDP gave softball criticisms of the Workers' Party of Korea's handling of issues related to people with disabilities, while also proposing minor election reforms. Whether this was the work of political liberalization at the time or an orchestrated critique permitted by the WPK, we'll never know. The DPRK is notoriously closed off and silent, and the KSDP's website, like so many others in North Korea, is bare bones. So we don't know much and can only speculate at this point. What we can say with certainty is while the KSDP and CCP outwardly claim to be independent parties, their rhetoric is laden with praise for the Workers' Party of Korea and the Juche idea. For example, the KSDP published an article saying that there was a political plurality in the DPRK. In that same article, however, it simultaneously claimed that there was no independent political thought and that every North Korean is loyal to the leader. The CCP is guilty of this inconsistency as well, with party leader Ryu Mi-yeon claiming in an article that she and her husband consider Kim Il-sung to be, quote, an incarnation of Changdo-gyo, the supreme deity under Chondoism. What are we to make of these independent political parties? Outwardly, they posture themselves as a shining example of political independence in a country thought to be the most totalitarian in existence. Under further investigation, however, we begin to see the facade of political pluralism fade. With articles published by both parties depicting the leader and Workers' Party as infallible, as well as a documented history of the purges that occurred in the past, it is impossible to view these two entities as anything other than empty vessels of the Workers' Party, the decaying husks of which are indicative of a bygone era of political independence in the land known as Chosun.